We're back with some more Tokyo Xtreme Racer Part 2 today, and we're taking a look now at the next two teams that we're going to be facing in order according to the rival list. But before we do that, I'm going to put a few more parts into the Impreza, thanks to the money that I earned from the last part, just to give this thing a little bit more of a fighting chance. I gave it another engine tune, and as you're about to see here, once I get to it, there we go, I thought I'd tweak the color. I still wanted to keep the blue, but I kind of wanted to get it maybe a little closer to the to kind of that rally blue. I mean, I admittedly might have gone a little too bright. That's fine. I like the way it looks regardless. It's at least a little bit closer to the WR blue. I also thought I'd show off this menu because I did not do that in the first part. There are some advanced settings, so you can kind of get a bit of a more of an advanced take on how you want the car to perform. So like steering speed, brake response, balance, clearance, shocks, damping power, the transmission ratio, and the final gear. I'm not very good at tuning in this game, or most games in general, so I didn't change too much, but it might be something I'm going to have to go back to as this part kind of showed me. So anyways, the next team that we have up here is a team called SS Limited, and they drive a bunch of mostly executive vehicles, four doors and sedans and whatnot. And the first we have here is a sports car killer, who gains his name because, as you were reading on the top left just there, apparently there was an accident involving a sports car, and the driver has basically hated them ever since because it reminds them of the accident. So yeah, but yeah, the one thing I need to, and the reason I need to look into maybe kind of testing with this, with the advanced tuning, is because this car is good, but I feel like it is a little bit on the understeery side, and it's gonna need a bit of work to really kind of push it. I mean, if you're good with wall abusing, you could just bounce off the walls and kind of get the angle you're looking for, but that's not exactly a guarantee, so you really kind of want to make sure your car is good. Anyways, next we have here is Black Rain, who apparently no one challenges him because they find his car to be intimidating rather than his actual apparent driving skill. So it's basically people just don't want to challenge because they look at that thing and they're like, ooh, this looks like it's going to be too challenging, so they don't even bother. Despite the fact it's really just a Nissan Cedric, it's an executive car, which means despite the power, it's also going to carry a lot of extra weight. So, you know, if we're just going by, you know, this game's kind of universe with what cars are available, a good majority of them should at least put up a good fight. So, I guess people just need to, you know, kind of look past its appearance, maybe. I guess that's my way of looking at it. I don't know. This is a really strange way of putting this all together, but you know, you gotta come up with some sort of idea, right? But yet again, it's another win. Nothing too difficult to have to really worry about here. As we go on to the next one, which is Heaven's four-door, who only drives four doors and keeps racing, trying to improve his technique. This is the only person in the group who will drive the Toyota Altezza, because everyone else has either Nissan Cedrics or Nissan Glorias, except for the leader, which once we get to the leader, we'll show what that person in particular is driving. But Heaven's four-door is like the one really notable difference out of the rest of the team members, because as the rest of them have the Cedric and the Glorias, Heaven's four-door is like the one that kind of sticks out because it's, you know, it's not like the rest of them. So take a quick drink here because I've got a drink here to kind of help prevent my mouth from getting dry as I'm trying to do this commentary here. One thing I've kind of been thinking about, I have to play the Japanese version a little bit more, but if you notice those like those trucks that appear in the traffic, they kind of look like Chevy Silverados, and it makes me wonder if this was a traffic that was specifically added to the US version of the game to kind of give it a sense of more familiarity, or if it's just more of a sheer coincidence sort of thing. Anyway, so next up for SS Limited, we have a Red Flash who apparently has a lot of trouble because he's not able to afford to put any more tuning into his vehicle, and just that no matter how much he practices, doesn't seem to be getting any better. So this guy really has his work cut out for him, I guess, in the case of a lot of drivers who decide they want to go up and challenge him. So poor guy can only do so much with his vehicle there. Maybe if he had a lighter vehicle, probably would be a little better off, because, you know, the Gloria is a nice car and all, but it's also, and it makes a decent power output, but it's also an executive sedan, and it's, you know, it's a bit heavy. But yeah, you can kind of see the pattern here. We've mostly just been getting 1,000 CP consistently through these rivals here so far. As we come up to the last of the SS Limited team members before the leader, we have Rising Star, who goes way back with team leader Takahashi, so there's maybe a bit of a name reveal, and apparently his love for the city and speed is unmatched. I'm guessing that has to be love for the city and speed, because when I was trying to read it initially, I said love. I thought it was love for the city, and then it's meant that their speed was unmatched. And I was like, I don't think that's quite right. I think it's more for the fact that they love the city and speed more than perhaps anyone else out on the C1. That's what I'm having to guess is what is actually going on there. But hey, I'm just guessing. But yeah, you can see here, SS Limited is not a very difficult team. They shouldn't really give you too many troubles with starter cars or anything, because they're mostly held back by the fact that they're some heavier vehicles and whatnot. So, but nevertheless, we picked ourselves another win as we now go on to the leader, North Star. He wants to be the fastest racer on the highways. He has an elegant driving style, and he doesn't make aggressive moves. Basically, a very clean, precise driver. And as you see, he's the only member of the team to drive a not Altezza, Cedric, or Gloria. He has a Toyota Chaser, which, in my honest opinion, is the most interesting of all, like the more executive sort of sedans. Basically, the Chaser is a bit of a cult favorite for some, especially because it's got like the Tour V model has like the one. I believe it's a 1JZ, right? It's got the 1JZ in it, and of course the 1JZ is part of the same lineup as the 2JZ, and of course they're very renowned for being very reliable, extremely reliable engines that can absolutely crank out tons of power. So really, you could make a really secret weapon out of the Chasers. Just make something go ballistic with the sort of body that it has. Unfortunately, you can't really seem to do that as much in that game, because again, few certain things that the game is, I guess, was holding back on. But of course, this is also 1999, and maybe people didn't quite at the time gotten the grasp of why people were really into the engine. Who knows? But that's SS Limited down, so that we will move on to the second team at this part, which is going to be Elegant Wild. And we start off with Deep Green with an S13 Sylvia, a used car salesman knowledgeable about cars, constantly tuning to make his car faster. Which makes sense. I mean, you're someone who kind of works within the fields of used cars and whatnot. You have your own kind of vehicle, and you want to keep making it better so you can become a more competitive driver. That makes perfect sense, right? So unlike the guy we saw earlier, this person seems to have the money to actually be able to continue to make their vehicle better. But as you can find out, their S13 is still a bit of a ways back. Not quite really going to keep up with the pace of my Impreza here. And yeah, I'm sure you can really notice what I meant by the handling. It's just, I'm going to have to try to figure it around to see if I can get it to turn sharper at least, if anything. Maybe we'll find something, but who knows. Might have to switch some aero parts around. Maybe they might have an effect. So next up we have here is a bit of an interesting case. So in-game, in the actual race, it lists the driver as Black Cinderella. But as you saw there when I showed up the little bio information, when you actually look at the rival list, the name suddenly reads Lisa B. Sky. I'm not really sure what that's about. But yeah, it seems like the names don't appear to be very consistent in some areas. Like, this is the first driver so far where we've had a situation like this, and it's not, by the way, spoiler alert, it's not going to be the only time. Not exactly sure why it happens to be that way, but I guess there was something different with the translations and whatnot. And maybe it's something I might have to look deeper into Japanese version-wise. Who knows? I sure don't, for sure. Anyway, so next up we have here is Postman Hat. He claims to be the #2 man at a club in Shinjuku, but his racing skills don't match his boasting. And if your racing skills can't match your boasting, despite the fact you drive a Honda NSX, then man, you must pretty fucking stink, to say the least. Again, the NSX is the most expensive of the vehicles that are available right from the start of the game, costing nearly 100,000 CP. I think it's around 95,000 if I remember correctly. But yeah, if you can't keep up and you have an NSX, then you're definitely not a very good driver, to say the least. Because keep in mind, with the other two that we had prior was an S13, were both the variations of the S13 with the Sylvia and then the 180SX. So that makes a little bit of sense if they're not able to keep up with the Impreza, but that's still an NSX. That should have easily been putting a bit of a fight, but it didn't. It just put up no fight at all, so hooray. But maybe things will switch around with the next driver, White Revolution. That's a name that's not aged well. He cares more about style than speed. Doesn't care if he wins unless he looks cool. So basically a guy who's all about being more flashy than, you know, having like actual skill. Has a very nice looking white Supra. I like the little body kit design on it, and, you know, white I feel is a color that kind of goes well with the Supra personally. Again, though, the name White Revolution, you might have wanted to choose a different name there, Crave, for localization purposes. Yeah, because that's talk about a name that in the hindsight of 2020 has not aged well. But regardless, this is just a racing game after all, where there's no kind of stature like that. It's just, I think it's more just a case of maybe a bit of something in hindsight that probably wasn't the best of ideas. Who knows? But regardless, it seems like the Supra here at least was putting up a better fight than Hoxman Hat's NSX, but of course, still not quite enough to make the biggest of differences. As we then move on to the next one here, the last one before the leader, Infinity Yellow with an RX-7. Very nice, FC. Raced in the city in a trademark yellow car, that FC, for over 20 years, but his age may be catching up with him. Actually, I say that car in particular. If we're going by the game's world, that would mean he's been going since the 70s, and the FC has not been around since the 70s. So it's probably what I think it more likely means is been driving a yellow type of vehicle. It just might be that the RX-7 was one they picked up later. And yeah, I'm making like a lot of really dumb mistakes here because I am SMRT. Just don't worry about it. It's just you never saw anything. You just nothing really to worry about. And that's one of the reasons sometimes I will try to abuse off the walls, because the game has like very bouncy physics reaction to it. You just swing off it like nothing. It's very weird. The next game in the series does not do that in particular, and I'll get to that when I decide to replay through that game. But regardless, right now we're going to be dealing with the leader of Elegant Wild, 300-mile Red Ruby with an MR2. And if you notice there with the little bio information, notice it mentions that the driver is a he because it says runs his own yada yada yada. If I remember correctly, however, in the second game, I believe the bio makes reference to the fact that the leader of Elegant Wild is a female. I believe. I might be thinking of the wrong driver, but I believe that's the case with this one. Yeah, again, continuity things that really aren't mentioned in any sort of way here. So, whoops. Well, whatever. Just don't worry about it. It doesn't make any difference in the long scheme of things with how the game plays anyway. So, but yeah, as you can see here, though, this MR2 is actually putting up more of a challenge. Of course, because, you know, with it being a team leader, I was kind of hoping it would. And whilst I'm not particularly having a perfect drive right now, it's still definitely one that's at least going more of the distance compared to some of the other ones that we saw a bit earlier. And look at some nice two-wheeling action right there. It's a decent chunk of change there for that particular leader. But of course, you already know for a fact that well, we ain't done yet. Because we got the second member of the Ford Davis coming up, Midnight Cinderella, who drives wild American style. No one has ever seen her lose. And she drives an actual rather custom vehicle, a white FD RX-7 with a blue flame job throughout the car. Keep note of that car in particular, because you'll be seeing something regarding it a little later on in the game. A little later on, not in fact just during this game, during this part even. But for now, let's try to take care of that. Now, yeah, you can already tell Midnight Cinderella definitely is not a slouch. No slowpoke or anything. Definitely puts up more of a fight. And see, like even there, I was just kind of having a little bit of issue there, but nothing to worry about. But the important news is right now we seem to be ahead. We're going a little bit wide here, and they forgot to turn. Yes, it is in fact possible to have a draw in game, and that only happens when you and the person you face go in different directions. So we're gonna have to go back and face Midnight Cinderella again, but this time because I have to start from the back, I'm the one on the slight disadvantage here. But I'm not gonna be deterred. I'm gonna just get this job done as I did before, or as it looked like I was going to. Should also note in the jump cut, because this is actually post commentary, there was a loss in there as well, although that was more just, you know, the AI kind of throwing me into a bit of an unwinnable situation where it kind of just the autopilot kind of tossed me into like a wall early on, like not intentionally. It was more of just the traffic being stupid. Like like I've mentioned before, the AI is not exactly the smartest in this game. And basically, it just put me in a situation where I wasn't going to be able to win. So you'll notice that the total CP amount after this might be a little different from what you just saw in that previous result. But yeah, you can see there, though, Midnight Cinderella does not hold back. He's definitely got some pace going to it. Death Driver was a quick driver in comparison too, but Midnight Cinderella, that RX-7 moves. It's well-tuned, and it's well capable of putting up a fight. I definitely still got to put more in the Impreza here. I can get it to go about under 55, which is decent, but again, it's that I got to figure out something with the handling. The handling, I'm going to have to look into finding a way to get that car to just make it turn better and sharper. Just anything I can do to really help this thing out, because it's the one thing, in my opinion, that's really kind of holding this car back. It's the only thing I feel like that's kind of preventing it from being like an absolute thrasher. But if I can get that situation, if I can kind of figure out a sort of tune and whatnot in the advanced settings and get it kind of worked down, this thing will definitely be a proper fighter. But yeah, right now it's really just it's kind of just really the only thing that's holding the car back right now. But despite the lengthy race, we beat her and got a nice 13,000 CP. And like before, I'm going to shut up so you enjoy the replay. And with that, that's going to complete our run for the day. I don't really know why I'm kind of going to the autopilot. I really should just be going back to the main menu, but there we go. Like I said, that's going to be it for this time. But before I wrap it up, let's go into the car dealership real quickly. We now have the Type FDD, which in fact is the RX-7 that Midnight Cinderella happens to drive in a more stock configuration, but it's got the special livery as you see there. I believe that you can actually make it to go faster too than the standard RX-7, so might be worth looking into if you want an RX-7 in-game. But with a quick save, and you can see by how many days, just how long it takes sometimes to get these drivers to show up. Again, it's random. It just chooses 6, and that's what you have to work with. Anyways, but thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button so you can see when the next video comes out. Check out my links down below if you want to help support the channel. I have a Patreon, and thank you to everyone who's involved as a Patreon member. I appreciate it so much, and I will see you guys all in the next video.